It's a simple thing sometimes, but we miss it. And when we ask a simple question, what is most important thing in life? And that is if we want to talk to others and explain to them some of the principles that Maharishi has brought out. On a most, let's say, basic, rudimentary level, one can ask oneself this question. And often people will think of, what's the purpose of life? Why I'm here? What am I looking for? And they will think maybe happiness. After all, we want to be happy, to be fulfilled. Or some will say knowledge. I want full knowledge, total knowledge. Or we want love, to be loved, to be able to love, to share this wonderful experience of connectedness and wholeness, and able to take and give in fullness without restriction. And all kinds of other possibilities are there. But one quickly realizes that although these are absolutely wonderful and they are great goals in life and great means of achieving higher understanding, growth, and development, that there is something that underlies everything on the most basic level, and that is consciousness. I say the most basic level because suppose somebody has lots of knowledge, they accumulated a huge amount of knowledge, but then either they get into an accident or something happens, or for whatever reason, they don't have consciousness. So simply, they're not conscious being. So if they're not conscious being, what would this knowledge serve them for? What would it be helpful? As if their system has knowledge, but they're not conscious being. They cannot use this knowledge. They don't express this knowledge. They cannot share this knowledge. They cannot experience it themselves because there is no consciousness. If you want love, well, you need consciousness to experience love. If you want health and wealth and all of that, without consciousness, what can the whole wealth of the world do to you? So on the most basic level of analysis, without consciousness, we cannot plan, we cannot dream, we cannot hope, we cannot experience love, we cannot experience knowledge, we cannot experience anything. And without consciousness, there is no really true value in life or in living. In fact, ultimately, without consciousness, there is nothing at all, because consciousness is all there is. Consciousness we can have on different levels as a screen, for example. It's a screen on which the movie of life seems to be playing. And imagine that the screen has an infinite number of pixels in it, and that somebody can only see one pixel. That is probably an atom, or a molecule maybe sees a few pixels. So that is a level of reality that is conscious. It's conscious of its maybe electrical field, maybe gravitational field around it. People call it as just a mechanical, inherent aspect of a fundamental particle or a fundamental aspect of knowledge. In fact, it's a piece of consciousness. Being aware of an electrical potential or an electrical field by an atom. The atom is a small, tiny piece of consciousness that can only see that much. On the screen, it sees one pixel. Now you put many pixels together, so you start building up. You put many atoms, you get molecules, you put many molecules, you get cells at the end. Oh, a cell is quite a quite an individual. It has a DNA, it has a digestive system, it has, it's very sophisticated. And it is consciousness. What does it see? It sees what it sees. It's hard to say from our perspective exactly what a cell sees, but it seems to see more than just an atom or a particle. Now you put more cells together, and they are all different just expressions of consciousness. And that is consciousness from bits and pieces is building up greater and greater dimensions of awareness. So you get to a plant, you get to an animal, you get to a human being. Now you have greater consciousness. It doesn't mean that the cell or the stone, have a feeling or understanding about consciousness, or they think, oh, I am an individual. They might not even have any sense of self or any sense of individuality or pain or suffering or anything like that. Yet they might have the simplest level of awareness, simply, for example, an awareness of gravity. Now, they don't analyze it like a stone wouldn't say, oh, I'm falling, I'm going to feel pain, I'm going to be shattered and all of that. They don't have that kind of awareness, but they are a piece of awareness, a quality of awareness. And as we go into more sophisticated levels of complexity and order, we get to the structure of the human nervous system, which is in accordance with the structure of natural law. And that level of awareness allows us to be aware of the self, allows us to see more, experience more, and be able to make greater choices. So as Maharishi was saying in the tape that we heard, as we rise in consciousness, there is greater clarity of the intellect. And the intellect is a faculty of discrimination, of ability to decide, to think, which means to make choices. And to make choices depends also on the different things that you see. If you look and you see only 3 possibilities, your ability to choose is limited by 3 possibilities. So you can say, for example, a cat or a dog under a certain situation, they can see maybe 10 possibilities. That's their consciousness, their awareness allows them to see 10 possibilities. So their intellect, which they have, can choose. There is a choice value, which sometimes is automated and it's instinctual, but still it has these levels of ability to choose, and therefore the ability to choose is limited when the consciousness is limited because you don't see more. So freedom, the ability to choose, depends also on what you can see. And in human awareness, as consciousness rises, we see more. Now, we don't have to see more specifically on an individual case by case because there might be an infinite number of possibilities. And if we are actually established in pure being, we do see this infinite number of possibilities without being necessarily aware by putting our attention on every one of these possibilities because our nervous system automatically selects from these possibilities. So as consciousness rises in complexity and order, it rises in wholeness and actually in simplicity also, and opens the awareness to greater potentialities. So in our world today, we live with different levels of consciousness. The higher the consciousness, the more sharp is the intellect, because the intellect sees more possibilities under every circumstance. And as the collective consciousness rises, the collective consciousness will be able to see more possibilities, which means we'll see more in the present, we'll see more in the past, we'll figure out more of what can happen in the future, and we'll then be able to naturally select what is best. So people are not necessarily bad when they do wrong things. They are just limited in their awareness because they don't see more. They don't see more. Life is to grow. Everyone wants more. Everyone wants fullness. Everyone wants happiness. Everyone wants peace and prosperity and goodness and all that is great. But if you don't see more, what can you do? You just choose from all the options that you can see. And again, seeing here is on the level of awareness, on the level of being. It doesn't necessarily mean one can analyze sequentially a million possibilities. The nervous system is so aware, so settled, and so wide that it doesn't have to focus on individual possibilities, yet it chooses the best possibility from an infinity of possibilities, and that is what Maharishi called spontaneous right action, spontaneous right decision, because one is established in the field that can manage, that can calculate, that can think in no time, because it's beyond time and space, all infinite possibilities. And if one is established in that, one can then choose automatically, which means spontaneously, the best possibility. So that is the beauty of what Maharishi was speaking about, I feel, in this beautiful tape, where he speaks about the rise in clarity, the rise in intelligence, in the intellect, and therefore we have the platform from the unified field to have life lived in accordance with natural law. Why? Because there is more awareness, there is more consciousness. And that consciousness, therefore, is not just something that is all or none. And people think like that, maybe I have consciousness and either I have it or I don't have it. So the stone or the rock obviously doesn't have my consciousness. Therefore, as a conclusion, the stone and the rock have no consciousness. But without consciousness, there is nothing. It's nothingness. The stone is one quality, one shape, one form, one idea of consciousness, even though it's extremely tiny, extremely limited, and that is the case with everything. So for humans also, for societies also, because as a group we have a group consciousness, a collective consciousness, then we have a quality of consciousness. Sometimes we are drowsy, sometimes we are clear. These are qualities of consciousness. When we are happy, it's a color of consciousness. When we are sad, it's another color of consciousness. When we feel love, it's a quality of consciousness. It's a special way consciousness expresses itself. So it's really as the children in our movement and the grown-ups also, and now it's in MIU and all that, it is taught. It is one unbounded ocean of consciousness in motion. That's all there is. One unbounded ocean of consciousness in motion, experiencing itself in a myriad, infinite number of ways and enjoying every one of these waves. And now we are in some of these waves and we have the ability to be the ocean. We have the ability to really know that we are the ocean and therefore rise in consciousness to experience not just transcending, but cosmic consciousness established in our awareness, and then know the glory of creation and its beauty from God consciousness, and ultimately know that it's all just that one unbounded ocean of consciousness in motion, in unity consciousness. And that is how life can be lived in its fullness and its true value, because the rest is just a limited value. Whatever else is just a limited compared to the true value. It's one aspect or another, or another, or another. From this experience is one aspect of consciousness. This other experience is another aspect of consciousness. This feeling is one kind of color of consciousness. That other feeling is another color of consciousness. This happiness, that thing, the other. These are different colors and shades and aspects of consciousness. Like the white light put through a prism, and then you see all the colors within it. It's fun to see the colors. It's good to be the light that has all the infinite number of possibilities, infinite number of colors, and then enjoy that wholeness from that highest level of being, which is the true birthright for every one of us, since we have this physiology that has already the ability, it has the Veda already in it, it has all the dynamics of natural law already within it, and therefore it can experience and live and be that fullness of life. And that is the message, the teaching, and the great joy and privilege that we have to have been given this custodianship altogether of this knowledge, to spread it for life on earth to be lived like life in heaven. All glory to Maharshi Gurudev and the entire holy tradition. Happy New Year. Jai Gurudev.